Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fourth installment of Debut Revue, a new online reading series dedicated to promoting and celebrating poets whose full-length debuts have been disrupted by the pandemic. I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Janiece, one of the co-founders and also a debut poet with the University of Nebraska Press.
Hi, and I'm the other co-founder. My name is Emma Hine, and I'm also a debut poet with Saraband Books. Today, our incredible featured readers are Adam O. Davis, Alexandria Hall, Michael Torres, and Joy Priest. Our readers will each read for 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll have a brief conversational Q&A before wrapping up. And if you like what you hear, please consider purchasing these authors' books via their publishers, by an independent bookstore, or via our bookshop affiliate page, all of which are linked below.
We're so grateful to everyone who's able to tune in, and we can't wait to get started. Before we do, one last bit of housekeeping. We prioritize paying our readers, and we are accepting donations to let us continue doing so in the future. If you're able to help out, there's a link below. All right, so we're gonna go right ahead into the readings. The first reader tonight is Alexandria Hall. I'm super excited to introduce Alexandria Hall, whose debut collection, Field Music, was published by Echo Books in 2020 and was selected by Rosanna Warren for the National Poetry Series. About Field Music, Rosanna Warren says, "These are badass poems, finding their way through grief and resentment by sheer force of intelligence." Alexandria holds an MFA from New York University and is now a PhD student in literature and creative writing at the University of Southern California. She is the founding editor of Tella Magazine, and her work was recently appeared or is forthcoming in the Yale Review, LARB Quarterly Journal, Boat, Tinderbox Poetry Journal, and Ninth Letter, among others. The Zoom stage is all yours.
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me to take part in this today. Field music. Ringing out the wind chimes, the night leaves a hole for a spotlight, and my hands callous over the goats singing. Somebody killed my cat, not in the way Dad made the sheep click. You know, I've got half a mind to howl you, hot as a salamander, foul as a skid steer. I ain't chicken. I saw Cat Baloo, the horse that fell through the ceiling. She was unbridled. I hope when I grow up I marry a boy I know, so we both know what to listen for. The sound of falling tips the stirrup in the ear. Mom says ancient like ancient, and every time I hear eggshells or ankle shins, I stay up at night, the goats bleeding in the barn bleeding into the goats, wind jiggled, like Dad's trailer where I sit alone, waiting for the cockcrow to blear the fields. In the parking lot of the deli, pulling onions off a sub, my mother shrieks, "Cry, Miss Ditch." But I hear the four-wheeler's back tires 2 weeks ago tearing up the mud pit, thrown back like a spooked horse. Dad says he can sing like a Kawasaki. He says he's got some good ideas. I know how to shoot a gun. The 22 kicked my weak shoulder, but I lied and said it was fun, just like I lied at my first confession, scared the priest would ask me to think harder or speak up. I never talk down. I never say shit. The gravel nibbles my toes. I know about sex. It's not a cardinal flying into the wrong window. The neighbor's puppies vacuum the gravel from the bitch. I don't like to call her that, but Jimmy does. We dig a hole under the uprooted hickory and wiggle our split ears into the culvert. The line of trees laid down after the ice storm slicked them. Dad hit Grandpa till the state troopers stroked the kitchen, staining my sweater. Grandma says creak like crick, and I wait for the violins. If you keep kicking somebody, music will come out eventually. Walking in reverse. Arrival steeped in a long sleep. From the side, it looked like river water. Home receded, returning in small questions. Inside were words like nightshade. Back there, smell of the granary in winter. Here there's a church in the city center, and the birds with their own bells scream back. It has a nice ring to it. I try to imitate, but it sounds like I've got a lot of praise for someone if you'll just let me. A tired guest in other people's houses. Rules you can take or leave, but not give or stay. You shouldn't spoil dinner or dinner conversation. You should call home. Home is where the mail goes. The lake was different after the mist rose, after the mist left the groceries at the store. Yes, we've met before. No, it's fine, really. My cold hands, my chaise longue. For whom will I heat up the leftovers? Hi, sweetie, poor baby. My mother, the speedboat. I would write, but I haven't. To my honey-dripping basketball, my love in the round, my anger, my anchor, my shape, ever in relief. I'm having such a hard time with my page markers today for some reason. I feel really awkward about that. Appetite. You can call the chickadees with a repeated psh sound, like popping tires or an air mattress. My uncle's a birder. He tells me these things. He can spend hours behind a pair of binoculars, waiting for the sight of some rare fistful of feathers. I wish I cared more about the birds, but I am interested in omens, which share their roots with ornithology. The direction of a vulture's flight could help divine the will of the gods. That and the willingness of a lamb to approach the altar. There's a farm in these mountains run by vegans who raise Icelandic sheep to feed ethically, they say, the appetites of others. Spot the young rams in the shaking brush. They emerge as if floating under thick coats, decked in leaves, weeks before the slaughter. Spring cleaning. In March, fog rinses out the summit of Snake Mountain, draining the remains of the Grand View after 7 minutes of saturated browns and greens. One moment, the drizzled vista, the next, high gray nothing. Once a hotel soaked with smoke, now clouds shifting over a slab of foundation. There's a pile of empty beetle bodies between the screen and the storm window. When I clean them out, their dust hides under my fingernails. Sometimes I wonder what it's like to be the one to stumble upon the dead body in the woods. Would the face look lifelike, discarded in the wet leaves? In the movies, to make the sounds of on-screen fighting, Foley artists punch slabs of meat, and sometimes it feels good. I only touch myself when I'm angry. I ought to haul out all this junk I called winter and lose it somewhere. The body loses itself between slabs of glass or trail markers. I like a realistic ending. Learning is not a smooth insertion or a brisk switch, but a slow and painful, then comforting, then painful rub. When the lights turned on, they illuminated nothing. Okay, I'm going to read one more. I think I want to end on a high note. I feel like those are all kind of bummers. So, The Drive. In the back seat, pressed between J and F like a spent lilac in a dictionary, I was unlasting. There were lovebirds in the front fricativing each other, but it made a which way when C off-roaded from an accidental exit. We belly laughed. My problem is always the saying, and sometimes the being overly heard, sometimes the under. God bless you. But anyway, what better time to slip out of your corset and let it settle over your jeans? Gut-busted buttons. We were laughing all the way to the Capitol, I tell you. That's what I said, isn't it? Anyway, we read a lick of the monologue, stopped for snacks at the Clara Barton service station off the Jersey Turnpike, and played this game where two players try to say the same word simultaneously. But it's hard to seem samely when you're having a good time with all those in-betweens. Inside tavern and dowel, a trickling. I felt a flutter when we passed through Baltimore, but I didn't say it because what's the use? I am overheard anyway, and always elsewhere. But no, not now. I will commit myself to the middle seat and the press between my breeze-ripened companions, who love like berries farther down the bush. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexandria. That was just amazing. That was a joy. And it's also my joy now to welcome our second reader, Michael Torres. Michael is a Contemundo Fellow, and he has received fellowships and awards from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Breadloaf Writers Conference, and the Loft Literary Center, among others. He's a 2020 McKnight Writing Fellow and a former artist in residence at the Camargo Foundation in France. His first collection of poems, An Incomplete List of Names, was selected by Raquel Salas Rivera for the National Poetry Series and was published by Beacon Press in October 2020. And I especially love what Jimmy Santiago Baca says about An Incomplete List of Names. I love this book more than I have any other book in a long time, celebrating our duality, the multitudinous breadth and depth of our varied and bounteous humanity. It's just incredible. So thank you so much for joining us today, Michael.
Thank you, and thank you all for having me. It's funny, Alexandria, you said you're gonna end on a high note, and I was like, I have nothing but 3 sad poems, but we're gonna do it anyway. So this first one is called The Very Short Story of Your Knuckles. Or the mailbox you bruised before you left. I don't care to trace every absence, every avenue until we reach what went wrong. No, let's start here. The car that came for you, a blue Civic, a passenger doors scrape, how easy escape seems, how an ache always asks for a window to look out of. Where did you see yourself? I memorized every corner your name covered, bone prints on tin and timber, stamped like lonely tracks. It was summer, let's say 2002, yes, the year I stopped being a boy, despite my body, despite the bike I rode to witness the city wash your name to puddles. I stopped telling my mother who I was with all night. What drowned out became a river called history. No one remembered your yard. For each street, a sheet of bleach, reason to clip your mugshot like wings from the Daily Bulletin, to keep you from floating away. You returned, and the trees said hello, but couldn't tell which one of us you were. They said, prove it. They swayed, you can't be. Tony, show them your hands. Ask the mailbox to open its mouth. Say sorry for knocking out a few teeth, for buckling its knees. From my classroom window at the prison before students arrive. Because the blinds stay open, I see birds. I watch how men watch those birds. They monitor flight paths and a soaring appetite for the crumbs they shouldn't have pocketed from chow. The indifferent birds ask for nothing, yearn for nothing, except perhaps the sky, which is nothing to them but magnetic blue wind, their one great war of journey. I've been thinking about mine lately, my own great war. Once, I met a man who'd been waiting hours for a storm to hit. At the park, he told me how difficult flight is for birds. He stared at the humming sky and disappeared. Later that night, I could not fall asleep, not with a fact like that. Instead, I sat at my coffee table and fed a dying rubber fig tree filtered water and the eggshells I broke apart, calling them my little countries. I thought of being president. Then I asked myself, why can't I be king? When I arrived at the idea of God, I began to float. When I woke, I understood my only burden is that of a simple life of a man who can go home and think and care for plants that do not know he is their father. If I am no one to these leaves, to whom do I belong? Thus, my great war is with myself, a wingspan of stirring thoughts that ask what's next, that wait for my response, like the men beyond this window, breadcrumbs, tiny questions for birds. Each man tossing a piece at the air anticipates a swooping answer, tries not to think of what goes uneaten, of what falls toward death, wet and certain, that patch of grass they walk, its cold blades, it's late October, every step stiff and speechless. Maybe I'll read two more instead of just one more. I'll read one that I don't usually read. And that's why I can't find it. Hold on. Here we go. Yeah. 1991. Instead, let it begin with an eyelash resting on fingertip, empty teeter-totter at the park where I played as a child. Yes, this is memory half made up. Because that time I dug into sand for the other side of the world and was given a red shovel by a friend who I'd imagined there with me, did it not still happen? For years, I mistook horticulture for a hoard of culture. So much culture captured, I thought, like so many shelves in a library that keeps needing to add rooms. One for the history and evolution of the vicuña, one for what happened to paper. Down a corridor of the mind, my mother sets lunch on the picnic table, and I must clap sand from my hands, for the maps of my life have yet to tell me how brief I will be this light. All right. I don't think I've read this one for a reading yet, so this will be fun. Horses. I want to write a poem with horses galloping through it, but I don't know much about horses anymore, except that they do gallop, and I'm only reminded of this by a movie I fell asleep watching. When I was a boy, I'd watched through a fence as horses shook their manes and galloped around the ranch next to where my grandfather lived. Perhaps that part about galloping isn't true. I follow my imagination more than I should, at least far enough to end this poem with a charge of horses departing in a cloud of dust, or however it is they vanish, because they do. To be honest, my friend was the one who loved horses. And if I'm going to tell you everything, I was in love with her. This was years ago in college. Isn't that a great way to start a love story? How would you write it? Would you include the sycamore tree, sunlight climbing through it, the shade we sat under, afternoons in a campus slowly emptying? Maybe all you need to know is I wanted her and I to work out long after we didn't, long after we met up as friends at a pizzeria near campus, where we talked about her mother and sister and that cousin who shoveled dirt every morning, timing himself because he wanted to be a firefighter. All that reminiscence as a way of saying, look at what bolts around inside us. I know, this poet who hates when poets use the word love in their poems. She turns the page on the word. I've seen her do it. But I wonder what she places there instead. I picture a pothole, its open gaze crushed clean by rainwater and tires. I picture a parade of silver fillings, the mouth waiting to snap something in two. I was listening to this podcast the other day where a poet explained how hard it is to write love poems. The problem is, he said, there's no tension in the love I have for my wife. In my headphones, I heard the interviewer exhale and recognized the ache it floated from. It was a horse galloping over a hill. There was a pause. The poet said he might never write a love poem again if all goes well. I laughed in my kitchen. I'd been washing dishes. My wife was getting ready for work. In the background, the clink of silverware. They were in a restaurant. I couldn't tell a fork from a spoon, and that bothered me. I listened for a clatter of neighboring tables. The poet's words slipped into a whisper behind everything. Sounds of metal washed over the interview. And isn't love like that? A shift of attention the heart demands, a refocusing. I think the poet I know would be proud of this poem, how it advances through the tall grass by itself, how it refuses to sunset. Sometimes leaving doesn't mean anything besides ember fading under earth. Another window in my house is broken. This time it's my bedroom. Our neighbor, this kid, has trouble learning when to let go of a baseball. After the shatter, I found a jagged hole and stuck my hand through. I waved him away. Later, I covered the frame with plastic and told myself I'd fix it in the summer. It's October now, and it keeps the cold out. The plastic sheet doesn't bother me except at night when a wind traffics through town and my ear bends towards the window's new breath. Tonight, my wife snores and I am awake. I press my palm to the blurred window. Beyond, someone dreams of smoke and salvation. I know this. I move closer, watch for clouds grazing in the prayer field, and maybe I ask for nothing at all.
I don't know if I'll ever get over the thought of a poem advancing through the tall grass by itself. That's just beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael. And it's my pleasure also to introduce our third reader, Adam O. Davis, who is a pressmate of mine. Adam O. Davis is a poet, photographer, and teacher. His debut poetry collection, Index of Haunted Houses, is the winner of the Catherine A. Morton Poetry Prize and was published by Saraband Books in September 2020. The recipient of the 2016 George Bogan Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America, he has received grants and fellowships from the Bishop's School, Columbia University, and the Vermont Studio Center, among others. He currently teaches English at the Bishop's School in San Diego, California. And Ilya Kaminsky says, Adam O. Davis has written a brilliant book about our ghosts, personal, political, mythic, lyrical, and yet very real. He documents and chronicles the music of the unsaid, melodies unheard. And I love this music, and I'm so honored to welcome Adam to Debut Revue.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Emma, and thank you to Jen also for making this thing possible. Thank you guys for your patience too. I don't know if you noticed at home, but I showed up a little bit late. I was racing through the streets of San Diego because I'm terrible at time apparently, and I was going to take my daughter's bike riding, but they are now eating cookies, watching TV, so it's much better for them. Trust me, it's much better. Everything's better here. But Alexandria and Michael and Joy, I love your books, and it's just it's a real honor to be reading with you. I'm so glad we can debut here together. First poem I'm going to read is called The Mosquito Monocracy, and my students have recently been writing homophonic translations, and that's where this poem came from. You know, the homophonic ideal is that you take a text written in a language that you cannot understand. So in this instance, I was physically or visually translating poems from Arabic into English, and this is what I ended up with. So hence the double consonants and all those fun little things there. The Mosquito Monocracy. 1. Josephine, I've junked a jazz band. Some squall grew low by the cobwebs, logic. All skulls and bouillabaisse. But we'll see come Zulu time if it's of goodwill or gall, the Zoroaster sings. All this in the hallway where July stalls, jet-lagged. In the hallway where the lemonade light lingers. 2. Every day was Halloween in the Middle Ages. The cravats of betrayed consigliere crispened under Carpathian sun. So long, Main Street, so sorry. I've rung you jealous to say slender things from this fickle well. I think it best we go to bed now. 3. Roll them bones at benthic measure, the bankers of sleep bicker in the break room. I find telephones humming in their buoyant cases everywhere along the river, all unanswered, all when answered yield the voice that calls you to waking. 4. From the calcite mountains of our mouths. 5. My time in Malaria among the mystic zombies who dragged themselves like trash through the tropics, chanting, "No time like this time, like this time to waste," was accurately reported as an adventure in rudimentary calisthenics. They haunt me like hemoglobin. From behind bus terminals, they ply us in paper suits, watch us like ice boxes. 6. Upon alkaline lakes, we skate on alkaline skates. In ermine, the eel eats the eggs of each oak tree. I eye the exit out into the taxi-infested night. You guys remember Polaroid cameras? You may have used a Polaroid camera. Yes, thumbs up immediately from Michael. All right, I love it. Thank you. We all do. I love the idea of the Polaroid, just in the sense that there is some kind of ghostly apparition there, right? The idea that you have almost a superstition that by shaking it, it will somehow, the image will release or be released from the film sooner. And so, so this is kind of a conceit that started with that idea of the impermanent permanence of the Polaroid ideal, that kind of non-digital physicality. That it's almost like a ghost appearing. You know, you think of you know, in the station, the metros, right? The apparition of these ghosts or these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough. That's kind of what I was going for here. So we'll see. It's called Ghost of Polaroid. Winter is a gaunt gimlet, insomniac in sand, its new gift blue and skeletal, thrumming, that plague of clock watchers, that lazy bones of morning commutes. Even so, everyone applauds that green sun shyly at the horizon. For who can ignore the Jesus bug crossing the pond? And who hides in clouded soil, sinking to lazier bones? No one is sick, nowhere, no sickness. No one feels sick. Do you want to say, I hope you're all well out there? Obviously things are getting a little rough. And I hope you're staying safe and that your families are safe too. This is the last poem I'm going to read. It's the longer one in the book. It's called Stetson in Retrograde, and the epigraph it has refers to a court case, Stambovsky versus Ackley, that, you know, a very short introduction would just be this. A gentleman bought a house in New Jersey. It turns out that the house was considered to be haunted. He did not know this. Neither the owners nor the real estate agent told him of this. Now, he didn't believe in ghosts, but he was upset because, of course, it offended the great American ideal of the resale value. And so he took these people to court to get a rescission because he wanted his money back. And in the ruling, the court sided with him and basically gave legal standing to ghosts. So in the eyes of the law, the house is haunted. And if you guys want to read it, it's a great, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but it's full of these great spooky double entendres, and it references Hamlet's. It's called the Ghostbusters ruling, first and foremost. So you should check it out. It's a lot of fun. Stetson in Retrograde. As a matter of law, the house is haunted. Stambovsky versus Ackley, 1991. 1. If a house is haunted like a radio is haunted, if a body is a radio of blood, if a body of ghosts hums like blood over a valley of bone, if blood is a government of ghosts, if bones grow green as cash in the foreign national of our ghosts, if homes bloom along the interstate of our blood, if from granaries of bone we rise in the newspaper dawn, if amongst the chattering of water we rise like a benediction over the auspices of convenience, if ghosts we rise like ghosts, if we collect like desire in a desert payphone, if we ring like coins in the cup of night, if we lie like coins in the palm of Nebraska, if the sun is an argument with ghosts, if the sun's argument plays out in squares upon the floor of this home, if the day winds down like a watch, if heaven is a horology, if desire is the body we give the past, if at night termites tick like time in our bones, if in these bones we find the body's foreclosure. 2. If in foreclosure we find the math of our homes, if the math of our homes is the math of fire, if the math of fire is the math of money, if the math of money is a map of interstate rain, if grief is a cup, let me drink from it and be drunk. If drunk and wandering, if thirsty and moneyed, if coined and fashionable, if drunk and wandering like a dog through the supermarkets of the night, if I want the question of a home, if I want as a windmill wants the wind, if I want that lesson, if I want the lesson that breaks me, if I want the desert and its wind, if I want to throw myself to it, if I want never to be seen again, if by the light of dentistry my teeth anoint ledgers lavish with loss, if in these ledgers every tooth is a house, if debt is a tooth the dentist will not pull. 3. If awake, if waking, if awake in the wake of sleep, if sore-eyed and stubbled, if poorly fed yet feed, if coffeeed and quiet, if humming, if awake and humming in the halls of convenience, if aching under the auspice of birds whose voices are feathered and vaulted and keyed, if of our voices we build a bank, will it not speak? If we atone, if we in our homes atone, if we sink alone into the chloroform fiduciary of home, if we pill and drone, if we alone are alone, if we sink to lazier bones, if we believe bankruptcy is a throne, if along the rails the whistle no longer blows. 4. If we choose, if we had chosen, if we had been better and awake, if we had accounted, if we had awakened from the tax of sleep to the muted bells of bills that rang like fire in the foundries of past lovers, if lovers and we sleep, if like fire we build the forest for overages, if for a surcharge we survive the past, if of the past we make a ministry of the past, if we pass like fire over the waters of ambition, if upon those waters we find our faces and weep, if weeping stops, if stopping stops, if the ghost math of money stops, if named, if a name is cast like a coin over the auspices of convenience, if I call a name, will that name call back? If I call, will I call collect? If I collect like credit, if I credit a ghost. 5. If named for a ghost, if in the name of all ghosts, if the name is named that calls all ghosts to waking, if waking ghosts, if ghosts rise like desire from the granaries of sleep and dress for the newspaper dawn, if newspapered and awake, if hunted by convenience stores, if alone and named, if nameless and unknown, if anonymous as light, if mute as tax, if a dividend of sun sits like a loan upon the floor of this home, if silence is alone, if the sun is a school, if ghosts are a lesson drawn in sand, if the sun looms like a school of blood over subdivisions of ghosts, if subdivided, if the desert like a house of belief is a body dividended with blood. 6. If belief is a ghost, if blood is weather, if bones are birds in a body of fog, if debt is a body clothed with birds, if the body is a myth in the municipal pool, if birds gather like fists of cash on federal clotheslines, if ghosts tremble on foreign buildings like cups of fog, if cash is the myth in the myth of collection, if myth is a lesson in collective loss, if we are learned and lean, if we are lessoned by learning, if learning is a lean-to loss, if a ghost is a home, if a ghost is a thing bankrupt of bone, if land is land only, if it is lessoned in homes, if we, like land, grow green with a memory of our blood, if we grow and with land, if we be, if land is, if we be and with land, never let us be without. If never without us, our ghosts. Thank you very much.
Wow, that last poem is so stunning. Reading it on the page is one thing, and hearing you perform it is just like a whole different kind of gift. So thank you so much, Adam. And I'm so honored to introduce our final reader of the night. Joy Priest is the author of Horsepower, published by Pittsburgh Poetry Series 2020. and it is the winner of the Donald Hall Prize for Poetry. About her book, Natasha Trethewey says, Horsepower, Joy Priest's debut collection, is a captivating display of might and elegance, a language of astonishing sinew through which the backdrop of place and a compelling life come into vivid focus. She is the recipient of the 2020 Stanley Kunitz Prize, and her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the Academy of American Poets, Poem a Day, American Poetry Review, Poetry Northwest, among others. Her essays have appeared in Bitter Southerner, Poets and Writers, and ESPN. She is currently a doctoral student in literature and creative writing at the University of Houston. Please join me in welcoming Joy to the stage.
Thank you, Jan. I'm so excited to be reading with all of you. This is just a really great event, and it's just a really selfless effort considering the hosts themselves have first books out this year, and to try to sustain a commitment like this through the pandemic. So thank you all so much. I'm just gonna read this series in the book that I call Film Phrases. And they're just, I don't know, I was working at a movie theater, like an art house theater for a while, and I got really into film, and then we just showed like 2 films a week that were like, usually the director of the theater, Fred Mills, had been there since like a really long time, I think since the 60s. And so he was really good at predicting like the Oscar, what was gonna be like the Oscar nominees for the year. So it was like those kind of films, you know, it was like some like French foreign language film or like some indie movie, you know, and so sometimes I wrote about them when I was like really taken with them. So I'm just gonna read those, and I'm gonna read them out of the order that they appear in the book, but like sort of in a Bildungs Romanik kind of way, I guess, of the speaker. Ode to Hush Puppy. Ode to Hush Puppy refers to the 2012 film Beast of the Southern Wild. And Hush Puppy was the protagonist, played by Quavon Wallace. Ode to Hush Puppy. Say here and it sound like a heel shoved down a throat, a horse hitched, guttural, tough meat yanked, bones crushed by teeth minted in gold, sound like a 6th generation curse when it fly out your mouth, little God. A boat cracking crossfield laid flat beneath indigo clouds. You say, come back here. And you mean your daddy too. Mean we are so ancient. How long we done lived, us folk, for whom heaven is live broadcast, are down at the hill place, filthy and barefoot, double wide on stilts, a body to be burned if need be, 'cause already no fear of fire in you, of sharp gill or heavy hand laid into your cheek. You've caught on early, turning through cylinders of nature, root, rainfall to praise, making rubber tire rusted scrap into playground. Sun-bleached boats, fishnets are birds in your hand. There on the divine screen of poverty. Ingenuity beggars alchemy, what we got into what we ain't meant to have. We's who the earth is for, you squeak. And you sing 2 kinds of people, your daddy and you, those who stay and those who escape the hill. This next one, this movie, I was just absolutely obsessed with one year, and it's 3 hours long. And it's like a road film. The director, Andrea Arnold, does this where she like just goes to a place and she hires like regular people to act in the films, but then she'll maybe get like 1 professional actor. This one, American Honey, was a 2016 road film starring Sasha Lane, who she discovered wherever she went, whatever town she went to. And she starred across from Shia LaBeouf, who is like weirdly one of my celebrity crushes. So maybe I was like obsessed with him in the film, but her too, definitely her too. But I just love this movie. The soundtrack is great too. If you haven't seen it, I think it's on like Amazon. This is a sestina. And I'll give you the words so you can follow. The 6 words are leaving, own, stars, dread, black, and girl. American Honey. It's easier than you thought, leaving. Only one night spent sleeping on your own in a motel parking lot beneath the stars of a summer Okolona. Your long-built dread dispersing like gas into a brilliantly black Appalachian sky. For once you are a girl, unmolested. You could do this, be a girl without a home, always gone, always leaving behind Strip Mall USA and the dark green dumpster you raid for food, something to own, and the 2 kids no one cares for, the dread that comes on when their father grips you sparkle. Let your freedom build slow like the death of a star across the years. And when she calls for you, granddaughter of Elvis, Confederate flag bikini, voice you dread, let the interstates roar, swallow her sound. In your leaving, you see your country for the first time, your very own scene. When he howls for you, your body is a silent black barn hidden in wild grass, and your locks, pastoral black, are ropes for him, swaying from its rafters, dangling star. It's easier than you imagined, leaving behind your own mother, her daughter, her ghost. Now you can be a girl on the back patio with 3 white men, and you can leave with their money, egg-swayed cowboy hat adorning your dreads. You swallowed the mezcal worm of your fear. Now you're standing in the cowboy's convertible, black wind at the edge of the camera's frame. You're leaving with the getaway boy you found sparking in the Kmart parking lot. You're keeping it alive, your girlhood, the adrenaline, the novelty, the dying star you own a million miles away. You're learning how to own yourself, how to be 14 deep in a 12-seater without dread, how to disarm, how to let it go when the white girl from Florida says nigga again, how to be the only black girl among strangers, dancing around a bonfire under the stars, singing out of the sunroof down the interstate, leaving each new town you meet and own a memory in, leaving behind your mother's dread-veined eyes, fuseless stars, learn it all, girl, until what you've left behind is a brilliant black. I should say too that I'm not necessarily writing about the films, just like using the films, I guess. In that poem, I just wrote into a name for my speaker, and I was like, oh, my speaker's name's Sparkle for the rest of the book. The next one is after a short film by Khalil Joseph, who I really love his work. He often collaborates with Flying Lotus or Shabazz Palaces for like their music videos or just these like experimental short films. And I think the one like mainstream music video he did was for Kendrick Lamar, All Right. But this is after a film called Wildcat, and the name of the poem is Rodeo. 1. The four-wheeler is a chariot, horse race, kicking up a plume of spirits in the dirt behind us. Her arms kudzu around my middle. Out here in the desert, everything is invisible. Only the locust flat buzz gives them away. Everything native and quieting, perennial and nighthawk black as we ride through the cowgirls, the witch and the water, sky bearer split the severity of squaw lines. Also the lips parting air like lightning and the girl blowing bubbles, in each one a rainbow. 2. She thinks I am worth a burnt tongue. 3. Her small gifts, oddities, meet me at my mailbox. Sheer curtains glitter above us in the current dance, in the heat that suffocates this land, the lone harp and low grind of its history we hold. She takes me to dirt raked into rows, to stadium lights in the middle of nowhere, a bed on a porch. I am a horse skipping sideways down her lane, the stem of an American flag that's been cut into strips, dangling in my mouth like a toothpick. 4. Our shadow town underneath the motherboard. our sudden lapse of sound. Lost in the undertow, swept up by her current, butterflies collide with my whipped tail, my trimmering eyelashes, my heavy teeth, my fattest lock grazing abreast. 5. Tonight she finds me like this, blood lacing my chin, two wide eyes peering over the torso of a bronco from the other side. And the last poem is Girl 6, which was a 1996 Spike Lee film about a phone sex operator. And it starred Teresa Randall. And I meant to say, all of them feature Black femme protagonists, and Rodeo was Wildcat Ebony Brown. And Girl 6 was the protagonist, the actress that played the protagonist was Teresa Randall. But I just like the idea of doing a monologue in the voice of a phone sex operator. And like, what if they didn't have to like cater to like, you know, the generic male, it's not even the gays, like, I don't know what it would be on the phone, but you know, like how interesting could it get really, you know? Girl 6. I know happiness is chemical and that I exist as an intense state of longing punctuated by quick sparks of contentment, as a body not allowed to pursue its own pleasure. So it becomes a game of finding ways around politeness, my own split open mouth. I tie my bed in salt waves, wait to be satiated, degraded. Wet with shame, I offer myself in cyclical failure to no one in particular, a religious practice. I demonstrate 365 maneuvers in swallowing grief, a self-defense discipline. I want to be disciplined for wanting to enjoy the end and shudder of anyone trapped inside my mouth. That wilderness. My heart has gone the distance so soon, I worry. I reprogram parameters for survival and end up at a canyon called segregation of feeling, what I used to know of my body left on the other side. As a woman disenfranchised from touch, that impoverished excuse for kindness. Hide me somewhere really dark. Hide me inside your hand. Turn me like an hourglass, my own recognizable voice giving up inside your scythe-shaped palm, becoming two voices. One, a master of hurt, that's science. One saying yes in the language of gravel, in a register lower than smoke. Thank you.
Wow, Joy. When I was reading through Gulf Coast to look for poems to share on our Debut Revue Twitter, I read that poem and I was just like floored, and I read it again and again and again. So I'm just so glad, selfishly glad I got to hear you read it out loud. And thank you everybody, actually. Like, I'm just completely floored by all of your poems, and I'm so grateful that all of you are here tonight. And to anybody viewing, like, please, all of these poets are amazing. Please, please support their books, especially now that Christmas time is kind of looming. Books are great presents. So please add them to your shopping carts. And before we close out the night, we're just gonna have a brief Q&A section about the debut experience. So we are going to just start with a question. So just to anybody, now that you're a few months into publication, particularly during a pandemic, is there any advice you'd give to your past self, pre-publication self?
I would have told myself to read the email more carefully earlier that said I should show up at a particular time today. So that's what I've done. I don't know if there's really a way to plan for this in this way. I think I don't know how the rest of you feel, but on some level, I feel like I've been able to do more readings as a result of the the digitization of the medium, but I also have no clue as to how the book is maybe being received, because once the camera shuts off, I'm just a lonely guy in a room. So I don't know. What the rest do you think?
I like that you, like, I don't know if I ever want to go back and tell myself to do something, because then I might be a different self. But like a non like philosophical answer. I don't know, maybe like don't be afraid to ask your press more, send more emails and ask more questions.
Yeah, that's one that I'm just learning now too. Like, I feel like there's a lot of lessons that I probably still haven't learned that will come. But yeah, also like not to stress too much about, like, just ask questions, and like then you don't have to stress so much about what's going on. I feel like there are certain things that I felt like I was supposed to know just somehow how things go and like what each step is supposed to look like. But of course, you don't know until it comes up, or you just ask. And so, yeah.
I feel like I would tell myself not to hesitate as much with reaching out to like friends in the literary community to like help me with the launch, because like I felt like I hesitated. Like, I don't know, you get that, like there's the writer self and then there's like the business self that I didn't know very well, and so I was like hesitant. But what ended up happening were like the few friends that I reached out to like help me with a couple of readings, like they helped so much. Particularly like Sarah Borjas helped me so much with like the whole like West Coast launch because of the pandemic. Like I wasn't gonna fly out to California and do that, and I was bummed about that most of all. But she helped really put together this thing that made it feel like I was there with folks as much as you could be virtually. And so I think I would tell myself to like just be more willing to like I don't know, to fully like embrace that sort of community that's there to help. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And the things I wish I could go back and like tell myself a long time ago. But I especially love that idea, Joy, about, not, we wouldn't be us if we had been able to go tell ourselves things. I really love that.
I feel like there's a Disney movie about that. Like, don't do that. That's always a bad idea.
That's a great point.
Stuck somewhere.
Another thing we were curious about is just if there were any literary journals or editors or other platforms that really championed you early and made you feel seen, and if so, like what about that made you feel supported?
I definitely feel that from, I'm sure there's more, and everybody right now seems like they're straining really hard to make sure they do not forget someone. But the first one that comes to mind is Bull City Press and Ross White. And he just like, I don't know, I just felt like it was a sincere interest in my work, and it didn't have anything to do with like, oh, I didn't have a book out, didn't have like any of the big things. I've literally gotten anything that you heard in my bio happened this year. But so I don't know, it was really cool, and they and him have been supportive for a few years, like a while.
That's such a tough question. Do you mean that in the context of like the book coming out, Emma, or just in general, like the first place to publish your work? Or
I think in general, I guess and please feel free to kind of take answers in whatever direction you want. We've been trying to just generate conversations about kind of community and support and the process of putting out a first book. So, feel free to answer in whatever way makes most sense.
No, I think, back to Michael's point earlier, in terms of the business side and the artistic side, I think that's the one thing that has been very interesting is all of a sudden you have this kind of, you have something that you want to get out there in people's hands. And there's this weird kind of confluence between, being an artist and being a salesperson. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, I think this is such a great idea, to be honest with you, in terms of giving people a platform. And it is, as I think Joy said earlier, it's selfless. So I think there's I don't know, I wish I would have joined Twitter maybe like 8 years ago, so I could have gotten a bit over there. But just seeing the kind of support that is on that, and the ways in which debut poets in particular have really kind of bound together. And I love the fact that none of us have actually met in person, and hopefully we will someday, but the sense that we're being brought together through our various presses and through this machinery that you two have constructed for our benefit. I think that's been really heartening, is knowing that there is such a great appetite and enthusiasm for the work out there.
Yeah.
That's so kind. Thank you. And I should also say, I feel like this has been, you say selfless, it feels kind of selfish. We get to sit in a room with poets we really admire, and I don't know, my social anxiety would really rather sit here and listen to you. So it's a real joy.
Well, when do you two get to read? I mean, this is your show. You guys got to read at some point, right? No, not happening. All right. Integrity. I like it. Look at that integrity.
You mean you're not going to attend the 2-week writers extravaganza that's going to happen when we can all be together again?
Oh, man.
When we could all be together again, that's a different story.
Yeah, we really want to have AWP 2022, a solid lineup. That'll be
amazing.
I think for the question, and I'm glad that y'all talked for a bit. I started looking through my acknowledgements page and trying to figure out who. I do want to say, Milkweed Editions and people who worked for Milkweed in the Twin Cities, which is an hour and a half north of where I live. They have annual writing contests that I would always enter, and there was a regional one that they had or still have, and I came up finalists a couple times, so I got to know that team and those editors in that I would go to their finalist events, but I wouldn't get picked, but they were always still supporting me and encouraging me to continue to submit to the contest. So everyone basically up in the Twin Cities, and for some reason the first thing that popped in my head when y'all said this, and I don't know if this is a selfish thing or what, but one of the first magazines, it was McNeese Review, and they were the first magazine that put my name on the cover, not when they put all the contributors, but they put featuring, and I was oh shit, someone thinks someone thinks I'm a feature, and I was so thrown off by that, and I was I don't know, it meant a little bit more, and it meant a lot to me, and I was just I really appreciated that they did that, because they picked up a poem, which was great, but I didn't think, I think then they move on to their next issue or whatever. So I really that did something for me. It made me feel really special, I guess. Yeah.
I don't think I have a great answer to the question. I was also looking at my acknowledgement section, and just I could name the people that have published me or something, but I feel everyone's, I've never dealt with someone who wanted to publish one of my poems and felt oh, that was not a great exchange. So maybe I've been lucky in that way or something, but yeah, everyone's been pleasant. I don't know, I feel kind of silly, that's not a great answer, but that's what I've got.
No, that's really great. I mean, I guess in a similar vein of people uplifting and supporting your work, so besides other obvious things like requesting books at a library or stuff like that, how can people best support you in your writing during this time, especially during this time, I guess?
Yeah, and other debut poets as well. How can we, is there anything we as a community aren't thinking of or can do more of?
Well, one thing that pops out to me that I was thinking about the other day is just how nice it is to get a message from someone who likes the book. Like,
Oh,
I feel like
yeah.
I'm so shy, I forget to like reach out to people when I really like their work, or I just assume like, oh, they're hearing it all the time, or I don't have anything really interesting to say, I just really liked it. But it's like, when I hear from someone that, you know, they liked something, it just really means a lot, you know, especially during the pandemic, because it's like I don't have that feedback in my life in general. I don't know, I don't see people with the book, or I don't know, it's like, it's just nice to have some kind of nice message pierce my little bubble. So.
I know I'm not one of the featured readers here, but I'll interject about something that like does make me very happy, and I'm sure that a lot of other writers right now are feeling the same way, is we can't really go to bookstores physically. I mean, I suppose a lot of them are open, but a lot of people are just like sheltering in place. Whenever I get tagged or somebody sends me a picture of my book in a bookstore somewhere, that like makes my entire week. Like nothing else good has to happen that entire week. So if you're walking around and you see a friend's book or something, snap a picture, send it to them. I guarantee that they'll be super happy.
Yeah, like your book in the wild. I love that.
And even better, if you like see our books, take them out and put them somewhere prominent in the book. Put them somewhere where everyone's gonna like, you know what to do.
The staff picks.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Like I saw I've been tagged like a couple of times. That I saw the other day, I saw someone's book in a bookstore in a town they didn't live in, and they were like really excited about it. And I was like, that is so, because like if we were touring, we could maybe see, or see the books more. But like I have not been inside of a bookstore since the pandemic started, so I can't even see not only like my book but all the debuts. And so that experience is really that is the one thing that we can't reenact, and it's nice to get those photos.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I feel like I don't have anything to add other than what Alexandria said and then what Jean said, because a friend did that for me too. He like sent me like an Instagram message of a video of like, it was in the shelf next to like the other, in the alphabetical order, and I was just like, oh shit, like I realized like I have not seen the book on a bookshelf like at all, and it was a great thing. So that's like a beautiful thing.
All right, so it's we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to end on one question that we like to ask all of our featured readers for all of our readings. And that is, we would love if each of you can share with us a forthcoming or recent poetry debut that you want to give a shout out to. I know it's hard, there's a lot of good ones.
I'll say we've never had sort of a call to action on Debut Revue, but I like this idea of photos of book in the wild. I would, if anyone who's watching, please, if you see a photo or if you see a book from any of our readers now or in the past, or just any other debut poetry collections that you're excited about, please take pictures, put them on social media, tag the authors and tag us. And just, yeah, anyways, back to debut collections. Just thought I'd give people a second.
My friend Catherine Pond, her book Field Glass is coming out in February, I think, and I'm really looking forward to that one. So keep your lids peeled.
That's exciting.
In terms of forthcoming, I mean, Stay Safe by Emma Hine is coming out in January, I believe. So that's get your pre-orders in now. I think that's a fantastic bet there.
That's very kind. We're technically off limits though. So
No, you're not, Emma.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of my friend's book. I'm gonna like wing it. But so I have two. One that just came out. I know it's already been said on Debut Revue before, but it deserves another mention. Inheritance by Taylor Johnson is a banger. I just like keep reading the first 2 or 3 poems over and over again. Like I can't even move on, and like it's just really great. And then the other one, my friend Justin Janiece has a debut coming out. It won the the Poland Junior. I think it's How to Be Better by Being Worse.
BOA, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't think of a debut forthcoming poetry collection. Like I have one in my, like I'm looking at right now, but it's a second collection. It just came out not too long ago.
Oh, that counts too. We're really just enjoying like.
Okay, you're like, I thought you'd be like, all right, get the fuck off the call then or something like.
No.
And
Alan Chazoro's Piñata Theory. It's
Mm.
Black Lawrence Press. It just came in the mail and I love it. So that one.
That's amazing. Yeah. No, we always, one thing we do with these, I mean, it's selfish personal reading lists and also just really helps us look forward to more events and know what books to keep an eye on. So thank you all. And thank you all so much again for reading with us. It's just been such a pleasure and such an honor to hear from you all tonight. And for everyone watching, we hope you'll consider buying their books and spreading the word about Debut Revue on social media and taking photos of books and tagging them as well. And we did want to add just a final time that we're accepting donations to help us cover our website hosting and our Zoom account, but most importantly, to help us continue to pay our readers, which is something we prioritize. So please prioritize buying a book and donating to, all of the many important vital causes and mutual aids. But if you're able to donate to Debut Revue as well, you'll find our donate link listed below.
And also stay tuned to our Twitter for an announcement about next month's reading. The December reading is going to be, we're going to have like a pre-pandemic large-scale reading with 12 readers. So keep your eye out on that. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please consider purchasing or requesting our readers' books at your local library. And thank you again, everyone. One final round of applause for Adam, Alexandria, Michael, and Joy. Thank you all for coming. Good night.
Thank you.